Hey guys, so Canon has released the EOS R6, and I'm actually really excited about this camera. Let's do some fast facts here. So we have a 20 megapixel sensor with a max ISO of 100,000. We also have 12 frames per second in mechanical, 20 frames per second in electronic. We have an upgraded dual pixel autofocus system and 100% autofocus coverage, which is amazing. 1,053 autofocus points as well. We have IBIS up to 8 stops. We have an EVF of 3.7 million dots with 120 frames per second. We also have an amazing flip screen, which I love, always on the Canon EOS R system so far. And as well, we have dual SD cards, which is a big deal. We have Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and durability just like the 60 Mark II. So let's talk a little bit about this camera. So with the new 20 megapixel sensor, we have a better dynamic range, reduced rolling shutter, faster speed, and most likely it is the same sensor as the Canon 1DX Mark III, which is great. This actually means better low light results. And as a wedding photographer, I tend to shoot in a lot of low light. So getting these results is a huge deal. Now, with that low light, as each pixel captures more light, and the R6 is actually rated 1 stop better than the Canon EOS R5. That's a pretty big deal given the price gap there. Now, also we have Canon's HEIF, which is like a 10-bit JPEG image first seen on the 1DX Mark III. So it basically gives you a higher quality than a JPEG at a lower file size. And we have a Digic X processor, just like the 1DX Mark III. So quite a few shared features with a $6,000 camera. Given the comparison, that's amazing. Also, we have the buffer on this camera is actually really impressive, and you can shoot over 240 raw images, which is literally holding the shutter for 10 seconds at 12 frames per second. And if you are shooting sports, action, wildlife, you should have no issues shooting at a high speed, even with dual raw to both cards. That's awesome. So if you're wanting to shoot electronic shutter, whether for faster frame rates or that silent shutter, keep in mind, electronic shutter can often mean banding with some artificial lights or rolling shutter. However, Canon is stating that the readout speed from this sensor is much faster. So potentially, we are getting a way more usable electronic shutter, or whether you want it for that extra speed or silence, you're getting something great. Dual pixel autofocus system. Now, and this is a new generation of autofocus system. I have personally used it. I think it is absolutely incredible. It is working just as well as they have been stating. Now, we have 100% autofocus coverage, which means that I can put my subject in the far corner and not have to worry about that. You DSLR shooters, you Canon DSLR shooters especially, that recompose is a thing of the past. You don't have to worry about your subject being in focus. So honestly, what are you waiting for? This is a huge deal, especially if you're shooting moving subjects, or I mean, at a wedding photography, I know, I am constantly shooting moving subjects, or even a model. I love to keep her moving, that flow posing, right? This is a really awesome thing, and the autofocus really proves itself. And we also have face and eye tracking for people and animal tracking. Keep in mind that Canon's autofocus system works at whatever the maximum aperture of the lens is. So with an f1.2 lens, you can focus at -6.5 EV, which is actually really dark. So let's talk a little bit about video now. I know Dan's the expert at this, but he's not here, so nonetheless, let's talk about it. We got 4K up to 60 frames per second. And although you have Canon's IBP or standard bitrate option and not the higher end all-eye option, even so, these bitrates clock in at 120 megabits per second at 4K 30 and 230 megabits per second in 4K 60. So still higher than what cameras like the Sony a7 III has, but unfortunately, here we have 30-minute record limit. So I can talk no longer than 30 minutes, and I have to get up and hit record again, and I don't want to do that. So we do have both Canon log and HDR-PQ, which is awesome, and it's also completely optional in case you're like me and have no idea what the hell video is or what it does, but Dan said it was cool, so I thought, what the hell, I'll add it in. So let's talk a little bit about the features and build. We have in-body image stabilization with 7 to 8 stops of correction on most lenses. And we have that dual card slot with both UHS-2 SD cards. Now we also have 3.7 million dots, OLED EVF with 120 frames per second refresh, which is actually crazy impressive for a camera at this price. This is both a higher resolution and faster EVF than something like a Sony a7 III. We also have that flip screen 3 inches, similar to the Canon EOS R, and I love that it's still going to close and not show the screen because, as I'm sure you have heard, I throw cameras in bags and my screen gets trashed all the time, and Dan does not like me for it. We also have 2.4 gigahertz, Wi-Fi, and Bluetooth. And Canon also just announced a new battery grip option, which I love for weddings. I'd prefer it. I'd prefer that longer shooting time. I think that's a great option to have. And Canon has said durability should be in line with something like the Canon 60 Mark II, which is actually pretty solid. This means normal rain, normal light rain shouldn't be an issue, but it's not quite like the build of the Canon's new R5. Now, also there are top of the line ports with new USB-C port, micro HDMI, and both headphone and mic ports. And from the back, it looks almost identical to the Canon's new EOS R5, and from the top, it's more of a hybrid of the R5 and the more basic EOS RP. You'll lose that display on the top, which honestly, like, I actually rarely use. So it's not something that I needed on a camera. So it's not that big of a deal for me. So the question is this the camera to buy? And of course, Canon's new EOS R5, man, it's got some amazing things and it stole the show when it comes to features and specs. But the R6 has some pretty amazing features to throw right back at it. And given it's a mid-grade full-frame camera, this is an awesome camera. And at $2,500, you know, it's a bit more expensive than the Sony a7 III or the Nikon Z6, but it also has quite a legitimate few upgrades because of we have the IBIS, right? The system, it tops everyone else. And as well, we have the faster frame rates with a huge buffer. And obviously the video blows everyone away. So the question is, what do you guys think? Do you guys think that you're going to buy the R5 or the R6? Is it that 20 megapixels that will set it apart from the Canon's R5? Or what do you guys think? Let us know down below, and thanks for watching.